What we're going to be doing today is something called somatic meditation. And my name is Andrew Daniel. I am the director at the Center for Somatic Development and the author of this book, Awaken to Your True Self, Why You're Still Stuck and How to Break Through. What we're going to be doing today is somatic meditation. And this comes from my work in the field of somatics, where we use movement and video to help people see these subconscious patterns, stories, mythologies, archetypes, shadow material that runs their life, but not through talking about it, but by moving in the body. And so this work, somatic meditation, that we're going to be doing today, is based off of principles in that modality. What is somatic meditation? Well, let's start off with what meditation is. Meditation, for most people, is a process of mindfulness and stilling the mind. There's different forms, but generally it's about quieting the mind, stopping all of the monkey thoughts. And how most people go about it is by using the mind to stop the mind. Some people that works. Most people it doesn't. What we're doing here in somatic meditation is not only being mindful, but bodyful, right? It's mindfulness for the body, bodyfulness. Filling our body with our presence is a good way to say it. So instead of trying to shut the mind down, what we want to do in somatic meditation is drop out of the mind and get into the body. And through a focus on the body and feeling and going into the stillness, going into the silence, even through movement sometimes, we show up more in our body, which allows us to be more present in life and in reality. And so by default, the consequence of that is being less in our head, less thinking. So rather than suppressing thoughts, we stop all the suppression and actually go into our body and start feeling. And there's many different approaches that we can take in this realm. Sometimes we do a lot of movement. Sometimes we go into emotions, feeling. Sometimes we explore the space. And that space could be outer space around us or inner space inside of us. Does this all make sense? Pretty simple. Nope, not asking you. Asking you guys. Makes sense. Give me some hearts or some yeses or some nos. I'll explain further or we'll move ahead. Yes, excellent. All right. So what we're going to do today is somatication around anxiety. I'm going to share a little bit about anxiety and go over what we're going to be doing. Then we're going to get into the meditation. And then afterwards, we are going to have some review, some conversation, some discussion. And that'll be it. Today's is going to be a little less moving and more internal experiencing. Chandra says, I know it intellectually, still working on physical felt reality. Well, this is perfect. for you then, because that's one of the things that we specialize. A lot of people come to me, CEOs, executives, very successful people, intellectual people, scientists, heady people, programmers, investors. A lot of thinkers come in and they're like, I'm in my head all the time. I understand all this stuff up here intellectually, but I can't manifest it in my life. I don't actually have the experience of it. And so a lot of what we help people with is taking what you've learned up here, right? Because a lot of you on this call right now have studied stuff. A lot of you've experienced things. A lot of you have an intellectual understanding of some of these concepts. How do you make it useful? How do you make it practical? How do you actually get results in your life? How do you change your life, transform your life based on all of these things you've learned if they're only stuck up in your head? The solution is through what I call embodiment. You've probably heard embodiment. It's kind of a buzzword lately. It doesn't just mean doing yoga or breath work. Embodiment in the Somatic philosophy is literally that wisdom, that understanding at a cellular level, at a body level. The way you move in your body reflects that understanding you know in your mind. And when those two aren't connected, you struggle. There's a lot of struggle, right? There's a lot of frustration because you're like, I know all this stuff up here. I know all of these things. How come I'm not getting the result? I know this. I know abundance. I know gratitude. I know intimacy. I know these things. How come they're not showing up in my life? I guarantee you, 100% of the time, people come in that say something like that, and I have them move in their body. 100% of the time, it's not there. In the way that that person moves shows something different than the image they have of themselves or what they want in their life. So the embodiment piece is absolutely critical in taking everything you've been learning for the past few months, past few years, and past few decades, and actually getting the fruits of that labor and actually getting the results of those. Agoda says, doing somatic experiencing has been transformative for me. Excellent. Great. Yeah, very, very powerful stuff. So what we're going to do today is somatic meditation around anxiety. So what is anxiety? This is a secret. I'm sure you've seen a lot of advertising and materials, all this stuff. They say secrets, magical secrets everywhere. And you're like, oh, I've heard this before 1,000 times. This is truly one of the things, as far as I know, it's not a secret because anybody's been keeping it from you. It's because just almost nobody knows this. It's something that I discovered doing this embodiment work. It was revealed to me through experience without being able to articulate it, and then working with hundreds of clients, I was able to finally articulate it in a way that became very powerful. And it is the definition of anxiety. Leave me some comments if you have ever struggled with any kind of anxiety. I don't mean just medical diagnosis anxiety, any kind at all. Kathy says, yep, Darina, I have. Yep. It is an epidemic. So many people struggle with anxiety. And I can tell you, the solution isn't because you're deficient in a synthetic pharmaceutical drug. Now take that as you will, but it's been my experience, while that may help on the surface, it never addresses the core issue. It never actually gets to the root of the thing. Sure, there are chemical imbalances, nutrition, things like this that can definitely play a part. But for the most part, for most people, for most chronic and acute issues around anxiety, it's something much more simple and something much more uncomfortable. All right, so Hannah says, yes, I have. Sandra says many times. Camellia says, isn't anxiety an element of the human experience? Well, now you're getting into some stuff. Now you're getting into almost a Buddhist kind of philosophy of life is suffering, right? And so there's tremendous truth in this, but there's also a lot more to it than most people see. Yeah, Buddha said all life is suffering, but that's not quite what he said, and that's not quite how we've interpreted it translates accurately. And so, yes, anxiety is something that we experience as humans. Suffering is something that we experience as humans. Intimacy, pain, love, right? The full gamut of human experience. But this comes down to kind of what the secret is. So, survival, Paul says, first time here really resonating with me. Natasha says, waking up at 1 a.m. with heart palpitations and anxiety, not understanding what woke me up or why. Paul says, your camera setup is fire. Thank you very much. All right, so what is anxiety? Let me tell you what it's not. We already told you it's not a perpetual customer of the pharmaceutical industry. It's also not an emotion. Anxiety is not an emotion by definition through this Somatic work. I'm not talking American Doctors Association, Medical Association. I'm not talking about DSM-5. I'm talking about in actual healing and therapy, in this work. Anxiety is not an emotion. Here's the truth. There are two forms of anxiety we can boil it down to. I don't mean social anxiety or life anxiety, relationship anxiety. There's two forms of anxiety. And both come from an avoidance. There is mental anxiety, right? The racing thoughts, everything up here in your head. And that is an avoidance of the present moment, right? About the past or the future, right? You're dwelling over the past or you're worried about the future. You're not in the moment. You're avoiding the present moment, the now. And the second form of anxiety is physical anxiety in the body. And that is an avoidance of feeling. You could also say it's an avoidance of stillness. So two forms of anxiety: avoidance of the present and avoidance of feeling. Now, we can boil this down even further. You say, all right, well, what happens when you get out of your head and into your body? What happens when you become present? Well, it forces you into your body, right? The only way to experience now is by being in your body, by being present in the moment, now, in your body. Well, what happens when you're in the body and you're present? You start feeling. Feeling only happens in the body. It doesn't happen in the head. It doesn't happen in thoughts. Well, I think I feel. No. You're thinking about feeling. You're not feeling. So, anxiety, we can look at this. And through this definition, we can say that boiling it down to the very core, anxiety is an avoidance of feeling. And there goes the lawnmower outside. I don't know if you can hear it. So, let's see. D says, suppressing an emotion. All right, you're on to something. You must have read the book. You know something. Camellia says, my first time here too, and I'm really appreciating your somatic approach. Thank you. You're welcome. Welcome. Thank you. You're welcome. And welcome. So, this is It sounds very basic, but as far as I know, there's not a lot of people approaching anxiety from this particular definition. I've defined it this way myself. I didn't get that from anywhere else. Now, there may be other people doing different work that say it in similar ways, but that is very far and few between. It's deceptively simple, but if you can presuppose this is true, if you just can assume that anxiety is an avoidance of feeling, it changes our entire relationship with what anxiety is. So the mental anxiety, you're worried, you're dwelling, you're up in your head, you're not present. The physical anxiety, right? You can't sit still, there's tics, you're looking around, you feel like you want to run away, you're like, there's just all this stuff, right? Right? There's this body anxiety. Mental anxiety, right? So those are how it manifests in some combination of those two. If it's something else, I don't know. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this kind of anxiety. And so when you can shift that definition to say, okay, I'm not feeling anxiety, because you can't feel a not emotion. There's a sensation of anxiety, and that sensation of anxiety is actually the result of the avoidance of feeling. Does this make sense? So it's a sensation. That anxious feeling you feel is you not actually feeling. It's actually the sensation that happens by avoiding feeling. It's kind of like when your hand goes numb or your foot goes numb in a sleep and you get these, it feels numb. Well, you can't really feel anything, right? Not the best, not perfect metaphor, but it's the similar thing where you're not actually feeling. There's some sensation there. It's the sensation of not feeling. Yes. Totally makes sense. 100%. Hi, Christina. Welcome. Okay, yes. So when you can understand this, when you start approaching anxiety in life from this perspective, now you can do something about it. Now you know, okay, this isn't some feeling that I have to deal with and manage and I don't know and it's overwhelming and it just won't go away. How do I get rid of it, right? So many people want to get rid of the anxiety. That's kind of what all of this crazy, tics and all of that stuff is. You can feel the difference, right? When I'm here just like this versus what I just did, it feels like chaos. It feels like noise. So with this definition, if you understand that it's not about getting rid of the anxiety, because what you're doing is now you're just suppressing, it's like putting tape over the check engine light, right? The anxiety is the check engine light saying you're not feeling what you need to be feeling. And now you're like, I don't like this light. This light's bothering me. Let's get rid of that. Some people are just like smashing the light. Raise your hand if you've ever wanted to smash the light of your anxiety. Yeah. So that is not going to work. This definition gives you your power back. It gives you a solution. It gives you not only a way to heal the anxiety, but to actually heal the underlying root cause, what's actually going on. So, what's the solution? Just do the reverse. You got it. You got it, Sandy. Feeling. Go into what you're avoiding. Right? If it's mental anxiety, come to the now. Get present. Get back into your body. If it's physical anxiety, get still. get quiet. What does getting still and quiet do? It forces you to be present. It forces you to feel what's there. If you have all this anxiety going and you get still, what's going to happen? It's going to feel like it's ramping up, right? Because that's what the whole point of the anxiety is, you avoiding, not wanting to be still and present and quiet and still. And so understanding that is the mechanism allows you to say, oh, okay, I got this backward. All right, so the solution is actually to go into the very thing that I don't want to do, to get quiet, to get still. And when you do that, everything starts amping up. Okay, so this is not entry-level work, right? Because you're going to start having to face and feel all the stuff you've probably spent months, years, or decades not wanting to feel. And so when you get quiet, when you get still, and all that stuff ramps up, when you reduce the noise, the signal gets louder. Right? This is an audio metaphor. Get rid of the noise, the signal seems to get louder. You can see it, you can hear it. So this is what's happening. That signal is that whisper. It's that feeling. It's that story. It's that trauma. All right, time to face it. And so by getting still and quiet, it forces you. Force by default, it's your choice. It's not a forcing force, but it's kind of through constraint. And then all you have to do is feel. Another way to look at this is by stopping the avoidance. Right? This work is subtractive. You don't want to add more things on top of the avoidance. So you're not adding stillness, you're subtracting noise. You're subtracting avoidance. You're subtracting running away. It's a slight, seemingly just semantic shift, but it changes everything. It changes the way you relate to all of it. It changes the relationship between you being broken and flawed inherently. You have to fix yourself your whole life versus there's nothing wrong with you. You just have to stop doing all of the things that keeps you from your innate peace. Then that journey of feeling and facing and healing that stuff is the therapeutic aspect of it, self-awareness aspect of it. And once you can face and feel and penetrate that thing you've been avoiding, what happens is that you have the healing. That's where the healing happens. And then you learn that lesson, right? You integrate that wisdom and that resource that's there to teach you. Then guess what happens to the anxiety? It's gone. It's gone. Now you may have layers. You may have layers and layers and layers and layers and layers. But each time you penetrate a story around that, it's going to get less and less and less. And so what's the benchmark? Well, the benchmark is, can you be still? Can you be quiet? Can you be at peace with yourself and with others in the space? So this is an adventure. Anxiety, the remedy, is what everybody doesn't want. This is why it's an epidemic. This is why everybody's looking for these quick fixes. Because the true solution, the true remedy is within you. Now, you can hire me, you can hire other people to help you in that process, but it's you. No one's giving you anything. There's nothing outside of yourself. Again, not talking about necessarily nutrients or anything like this that can be very beneficial. We're speaking simply from energetic, emotional, mental, physical place. It's all within you. but it requires you to do what you've spent so much energy investing in avoiding doing. That's why so few people do it, why so many people are anxious. It requires great courage. It requires great willingness to face these things, because there may be incredible trauma. There may be powerful stories. There may be generational mythologies that run you. But it does work. Never said it's going to be easy. It doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to suffer. It does require great courage, passion, willingness. So, we got a few comments here, and then we are going to get into the meditation. It's going to be very simple. Very, very, very simple. All right, I see all the hearts. Thank you guys so much for those. Thank you, Sandy, for the donation. Awesome. Appreciate that. Angus says, yes, I remind myself if I am in the future, I'm living under anxiety. If I'm in the past, I'm under depression. If I'm in the present moment, I don't breathe. In the past or future, I breathe in. Okay, sure, you're breathing in the present. Butterfly Rain, hello, you're new here, but she's very passionate about what you teach. Thank you. Yes, this saved my life. I was homeless multiple times. I've been on an adventure. You can look up on my YouTubes parts of my story, but I've been on a crazy adventure and this healing journey, and this is the stuff that finally did it. You know, this embodiment work, this Somatic work, is finally the thing after a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of modalities. It's finally what actually worked for me and lots of other people. I share a lot more about these ideas and these teachings in this book, Awaken to Your True Self. Everything we just talked about here is about 2 paragraphs in that book. There's 432 pages. So a lot of depth, a lot of breadth in this material. We can go really deep and really wide. There's a lot here if you're interested in this kind of stuff. The only way out is in. Yes, great quote. All right, D says, once I feel an emotion I'm avoiding, how do I resolve that emotion? Again, really simple. We all want to overcomplicate it. You go into it, right? So there's different ways that we are trying to feel it but aren't. Sometimes we're thinking about the emotion. Sometimes we're looking down at it. Sometimes we're dissociated in third person, looking at ourselves. So there's a lot of different things we're doing when we go in to feel things and not getting a resolution. So it's hard to say without seeing exactly what's going on for you. But generally, it's to feel it. You don't really have to do anything. It's built in. It resolves once you fully penetrate it. Once you fully surrender, once you fully feel it, it resolves and it informs you. That may take some time. It may take courage, right? Because you may not want to feel that abuse, that trauma, that horror, that failure, that, it can be some deep shadow material that you just don't want to feel. And then the ego can come in and fake it and run tape on it. Say, oh, yes, I'm feeling, but not really. So this is where having external feedback comes in very helpful. This is where things like cinesomatics comes in, because you can get video feedback. You can see yourself doing this stuff, and it helps you confront these things to actually feel it. Bottom line is to just feel it. When you fully penetrate it, when you fully feel it and surrender to it, sometimes even feeling like it's going to annihilate you, it will resolve. It's really that simple. All right, Natasha says, I'm really enjoying your talk today. Thank you. I feel connected to your words and how you you articulate and share your approach. I'm following you and I'm grateful to be here. Thank you. You are welcome. Thank you for the kind words. We're happy to have you here. It's a wonderful community. I just love how supportive and kind everybody is here. I've been doing this for 15 years, and it's one of the best communities that I've found. All right, so enough yapping for me. Let's go into the meditation. All right, so we're going to take 3 breaths to bring us in, and you can get situated. You can sit, stand, lie down. All right. All right. Feel your feet on the ground. If you're lying, feel your feet connected to what you're lying on. Bring your awareness into your body. We're going to do 2 parts, a non-moving part and a movement part. Both are the same thing. 2 different approaches. I'm going to do little talking and just hold some space and silence for you to explore. The first part, go inside of your body and look around. All I want you to do is become aware of what you don't want to feel. It could be a literal part of your body, or it could be an emotion. Are there parts of your body you're avoiding feeling? Or are there emotions you're avoiding feeling? All you want to do is just look, feel, see what they are. No need to fix, no need to judge, no need to analyze. Just look around. Feel around. What don't you want to see about yourself? A quality, a character, a mask, a circumstance in life, a meaning you're giving something. Perhaps there's judgment, self-judgment. You don't have to do anything with this. If you would like, simply look around for some more. Just look what else you might be avoiding. You may say, well, that's it. Okay, keep going. Go deeper. If you're more advanced, I have some further instructions. If you don't want to go here, you don't have to. Just stay inside and look around, feel around. What else are you avoiding? Feeling. So if you're more advanced, I want you to go into the feeling. What is this about? Let yourself feel it. Go into it. Instead of running away from it, what if you surrendered to it? What if you accept it? Now the story comes up, right? The ego comes up. It says, well, if I accept it, that means I'm allowing this in my life. I have to fight against it, so it's not true. Yeah, how is that working for you? The only way you can do something about it is to first accept it. And we spend so much energy trying not to accept it in order to not make it real. And it is stuck. It's not going anywhere. You have to surrender to it first. You have to accept it first. Once you can accept what is for what is, then you can make a new choice. But trying to avoid and fight against and make a new choice before you accept it doesn't work because you don't own it. Take responsibility for it. And then it's yours. And then you can do something about it. So go into the feeling. Surrender to it. So Dorina says, I've been running from loneliness for a long time, as well as grief. So this is a safe space for you to feel that loneliness, to face that loneliness, to face that grief. I've had a lot of loneliness in my life. And when I was able to just surrender to it and just accept whatever judgments and meanings I gave it, and just said, fine, I guess I'm lonely. I guess I'm pathetic. I guess I'm going to be alone. Without resentment, without bitterness, without all that other stuff. Right? Because you go into it with the bitterness and resentment and rage, you're still fighting it. It's okay. Feel it. You got to move through all that stuff. First, step by step. You may have to go through the judgments. Those judgments are protection mechanisms, right? All this judgment prevents you from accepting it. And accepting it lets it in. So we're judging it to protect ourselves from this stuff from coming in. Makes sense to the ego. Unfortunately, it means that you're a victim to it. It means that it's running your life. It means you can't do anything about it. It means you're always defending against life itself. The avoidant life is the antithesis to the heroic life. D says, I am somewhat aware of anger, rage, and fear as a child who was not understood or heard while being forced to comply to the caretaker's wants. Yeah, so there's this being oppressed, not being heard and seen. That rage and anger comes from that feeling of being a victim to that, being powerless, helpless to it, feel it. This is going to start the healing to take that power back, right? Reclaiming that power, right? All these things happen. We give our power away. We claim it back. Doesn't excuse them, right? We're not excusing anybody for what they did. We're just taking our power back so we can heal. Sandy says, I think it really helps people feel when we are around non-dismissive, non-gaslighting others. Thank you for creating space for everyone here. You are welcome. You have to feel it to heal it. Even if you might be making it up, even if you might be crazy and hysterical, that's okay. We got to get through it. We got to find the truth anyway. Maybe there's a bunch of hysterics. It's okay. Well, let's find that truth. Maybe there's something there. It's not nothing, right? It's not nothing. So without judgment, without condemnation, with compassion, with grace, and discernment and boundaries, right? We explore these things. Without enabling, right? We're still in it. We're still facing it. We're taking our power back. Finding out the truth. The only way to find out the truth is to feel it. What is the feeling? Are we lying to ourselves? Are we conning others? Are we manipulating the space for pity or attention? The only way is to be in a place that is safe to find out, to act it out, to do it, to see the truth. So we're not always innocent, but without a space to explore that, to try it on, to play, to be seen and heard and felt and validated, it's really hard to heal this stuff. So you are very welcome, and thank you for sharing that. All right, so part two. Part two is with movement. So find a way to move. Just the first thing that comes up. It could be shaking your hands. It could be moving your elbows. It could be rotating your head. It could be wiggling your feet. It could be shaking your butt. Whatever it is, I'll give you about 5 seconds here. Just find a way to move. All right. Now, I want you to move in this way for about a minute or so. And then what I want you to do is from this movement, I want you to find a way to move that you're avoiding. So is there a part of your body that you don't want to move in? Is there a way of moving that you don't want to move in? Maybe it's really fast and aggressive, right? Maybe it's very soft and slow and sensual. Maybe it's serious or silly. Maybe it's staccato or smooth. So move in the first way first. And then I will give you the invitation to move in that second way that you don't want to move in, that you're avoiding. And be aware of any emotions, right? If you start to anticipate it, if you're in the future, right, creating that anxiety, maybe your heart races, anything. This is all part of it. Be aware, be mindful, be bodyful of everything through this process. All right? So we'll give you a minute here. Move in this first way. All right, now move in the way that you don't want to move. Obviously, stay safe, right? Don't do something that's going to hurt yourself. But move in that way that you just intuitively don't want to move, that you're dreading, you're avoiding, you're afraid of, that you judge. We're going to do that for about a minute. Notice what you feel. Notice your judgments. Notice any anxiety or reduction in anxiety. Notice any stories that might be coming up. Too masculine, too feminine, too ugly, too much attention, too small, too big, taking up too much space, too little space. What are these judgments? What are these stories around this movement that you really don't want to do? All right. Good. All right, you can stop the movement. Come sit back down, or whatever it is that you were doing before. And we'll take one final minute here for you to contemplate, feel inside, feel the difference. What is different in you now than before? What stories came up? Is there any relationship to this, to what you didn't want to feel in part one? There may be, there may not be. All right, great. Let's take a few, specifically 3, breaths together. And we will wrap up and then move to discussion. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of questions and sharing and discussion. So let's wrap up and move to that. Great. Excellent. Well, this concludes the somatic meditation portion. I recommend sticking around for a few more minutes for the discussion. It'll be very helpful for you to share your experiences and to read and hear other people's experiences that have gone through this with you. For this particular one, it is going to be helpful because it was a very internalized process. Other ones, maybe not so much, but this one, I feel you'll get benefit from sharing and seeing what other people have experienced. If not, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Andrew Daniel. Be sure to follow me here, subscribe. this replay looks like it'll work. This will be posted on one of my YouTube channels, so you can find the clips and replays channel, and you'll be able to get a replay of today's session. If you missed any of it or you want to watch it again, you'll be able to skip right to the meditation if you just want to do the meditation part. And we'll see you next week. Otherwise, let's see what you guys experience. Natasha says, I had to get up and move the whole body. Oh, yeah. Move the whole thing. Dee says, I'm avoiding moving my hips or abdominal area. I am fat. I am unattractive. I am constrained. I am not free. Oh. Yeah. So, the invitation, right, is to go into those. All right. Feel the fatness. Feel the unattractiveness. Feel the constraint. Feel the, I guess it would be free, constrained, restricted, whatever that opposite is to you. So you want to go in there and feel it. And then you're gonna see what comes up, right? There might be hatred. There might be despair and hopelessness. It doesn't mean you want to live in those things. It means that those are connected to these stories. And so when you can feel those things and heal them and face them and see what this is trying to share with you, that's going to be your freedom, right? Hannah says, yes, very powerful. Amelia, very interesting, thank you. You are welcome. Maisha, I hope I'm saying that right. Very interested in the distinction between feelings and sensations, please. Yeah, feelings generally is more emotionally based, I guess you could say, right? You're feeling the emotion. Like if you're nervous, there's a nervous feeling, and then you may also get a sensation in your belly that you're going to want to throw up or something, right? So there's a physical sensation, and then there's the actual emotional component, the energy and motion component. And so what I find is that I've had some clients where I say, what are you feeling? And they're like, well, I have tingles in my cheek, or there's energy running through here. And what they're doing is they're saying everything except emotions. So that the awareness of all of that energetic sensation or physical sensation is great. That's really good awareness. It's just not the secret sauce that's going to lead to the healing. It's the emotion. Dorina says, I have to go, but thank you so much. I'll check out your YouTube, and I'm looking forward to the next session. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Easter. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining. Lisa says, first movement thoughts. If I make a mistake, I won't be loved. Wow. Look at you guys. You guys are pros. Second movement thoughts, too disrespectful. You'll get in trouble. But the more I did the second one, the less it bothered me. Great. Lisa, excellent. Let me see. I'm trying to scroll up here. Oh, it's not showing me back in the past. I can't get the earlier ones. Lisa, were you the therapist? The somatic therapist? Or not? I could be wrong. But that's very good. I'm laughing because it's, for me in this work, it's wonderful working with on. Great. Yeah. I had a feeling, because that's really good level of self-awareness. So you may see, why is this guy saying good when somebody's saying their trauma? Because it's the awareness. right? It's great. It's not about feeling good. It's about feeling. The more you can feel, the more you can get into a relationship with this stuff, the better your life is going to work. So it is a wonderful thing when you realize a shadow aspect. Now, it may not feel wonderful, but that's part of our distorted relationship with our shadow. So if you can actually adopt that and say, oh, how wonderful, I realized I hate myself, or whatever it is, that's a step on to healing. It's part of what I talked about earlier about accepting it first, rather than fighting it and judging it. So Lisa, back to that, right? You get to see that if you make a mistake, you won't be lovable, right? So then there's this perfectionism, right? It's being a good girl, perfectionism, something like this, some myth around this energy. Yeah. And then so when you can go into something that feels disrespectful, when you can go into the opposite of that and make mistakes and maybe give a little middle finger to the world, to you it feels disrespectful, but maybe if we saw it in a class or in a session, you'd actually show up bigger. You would feel more free. You'd be out of that perfection prison. So that's how in Somatics we could work with something like that. Lisa says, perfectionism has held me back from so much in life. Yes, there you go. I knew it. Paul says, describing but not feeling. Yeah, exactly. That is a booby trap. A lot of people will describe and talk about the feeling rather than actually be in the feeling. So this is where Somatics and having a facilitation is life-changing and essential, because we could spend our entire life thinking we're feeling, but we're actually not, and wondering why we're not getting those results. We could spend all of this time doing more and more and more of what we think is the right thing that's supposed to help and work. And if it's not, life's just going to get harder. It's just going to get worse. So having some sort of external feedback through the movement, through the video, very advanced, very transformational, very helpful. But even through coaching or therapist or mentor or just watching yourself, mindfulness of what you do, it's very important, especially if we have reverse wiring. If you want to learn about that stuff, I talk more about it in the book. All right. Butterfly Rain. Listening to your stories, I can't help but relate. I quit drinking this year, and although it's been very hard, it's been rewarding. Congratulations on your sobriety. That's a big step in this culture. Yeah, geez, in the world, really. I think sometimes you have to take all the garbage out of your life and really focus on loving yourself to not think badly. It doesn't happen overnight, but it is possible. It's absolutely possible, step by step. I encourage people not to feel like they have to do it all at once, right? The pressure of doing it all at once tends to get people nowhere. Step by step, one thing at a time, one step at a time. Those steps could happen. You could do 20 steps in a day, or you do one step in a month. That's up to you and your journey and what part of it you're in. But people can move a lot faster than they think. You're welcome. Dee says, some of the reasons I can reach the feelings I did today is because of the work I've been doing with my psychodynamic therapist. Excellent. Great. Yeah, the more we do this kind of work, it's like a muscle, right? We're able to access this stuff easier and easier. I can feel, I'm living and feeling most of the time rather than living in my head most of the time. That took years, but it's made a huge difference. And Natasha says, it's okay to make mistakes on our journey. Doing the work and talking about the experience is so important and very rewarding. Yeah, a lot of us have very distorted interpretation of mistakes. This is one of the things I learned when I was in my early 20s. It was very, very, very powerful. It's the concept that there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So if you just change your relationship to mistakes and failure and instead see it and know it, right? It's not just a theory. When you actually experience this, you say, oh, I made a mistake. Well, what did I learn from it? Well, I learned this. Okay, well, I'm actually smarter now than I was before. I'm actually ahead more now than I was before I made the mistake. It's like, oh, well, let me fail and make mistakes as many as I can and as fast as possible in order to grow and to be smarter and to be more successful. But if we have stories and traumas that say if you make a mistake, you're unlovable, you have to be perfect, or mom or dad is going to abandon you, ho, 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 you're going to stay small, you're going to stay and play dumb, perhaps, you're going to abandon your light and your brilliance, and you're going to just shrink, walk around in eggshells, terrified of making mistakes. So that's why the healing work is very important, because those things are going to get in the way of a rational understanding that failure and making mistakes is a very important part of life. Well, that's very helpful to know. But if you have all of that subconscious stuff running, you're not even going to go there. It's not worth it, because you rather stay alive and loved by your parents or God or whatever it is than that outcome. So this is why the exploring of these subconscious things is very, very powerful. All right. Share your final thoughts. If you want to share your final experiences, any last questions, comments, we're going to wrap up here in the next minute or two. The example of I felt fat, like someone said, I think the first thing you can do is start eating healthy and exercise no matter what increment, and you have to implement self-love and tell yourself, beautiful, because by even saying that you're fat is being an enemy towards yourself. Yeah, when you are attacking yourself and are judging yourself, it's going to be a battle and a war. You're raging in yourself. I will add something into that comment, is that you have to first be willing to tell the truth and accept it. Then that is an act of self-love, right? So let's say you're overweight. All right, you look down, you know you're overweight. Tell the truth. Okay. All right. But it's telling the truth. What is your definition of fat? Maybe fat as a label has all this judgment and ugliness. Maybe there's ugliness and undesirability and failure and patheticness locked up into that word. Well, you're going to have to deconstruct that word first. And so being able to tell the truth is part in understanding and defining these words more accurately. So maybe it's more of a truth of just you have extra fat on your body, more than is probably healthy. Okay. So that's going to be more helpful than all the judging and the self-hatred and self-attack. It's also going to be more helpful than living in a fantasy and in denial, saying you are super skinny and super healthy when you're eating Cheetos and Taco Bell and you're 800 pounds. That doesn't work either. But also the self-attack and the self-hatred and all of the condemnation and the peer pressure and social expectations of society, that doesn't work either. So it's really this, you have to sort through all of it. And that takes willingness, that takes courage, it takes effort and intention to say, what is the truth? So that can be applied to anything, right? Loneliness. Yes and yes. Excellent. All right. Well, that looks like that's about it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Once again, my name is Andrew Daniel. I am the director at the Center for Somatic Development, where we do stuff like this times 100, called Somatics. I am the author of this book, Awaken to Your True Self, and this is the Gold Nautilus Award that this book won. If you liked what we've been discussing today, you'll find that and a lot more in the book if you're interested.